Good evening, everybody. How's it going? It's me, Comic Crack. It's Sunday, and Rasa and I did not have our chat this afternoon. Rasa was unable to make it, so hopefully we'll be back next weekend on one of our channels. I haven't read a ton this week. I read some digital stuff, and then I read a book that I picked up at Red River Bookshop this weekend. And I've got just a couple of comics, two comics to show you from pickups. Pretty minimal. I didn't go to the comic convention. There was a small comic convention on Saturday, and I meant to make it out. Well, I don't know if I meant to make it out. I feel like I wanted to go to it. I ended up not going to it, trying a bit to cut back for the first little bit of the year here. Too many books. Too easy to just kind of pile up a bunch here that then have to get sorted and read and things. If you joined me for my stream last night, I was just kind of going through drawers, pulling stuff out that I want to get rid of to make some space. I'll probably end up doing that next weekend. There was a few people that hung out for it and had a couple of comments on it already, so that's cool. I didn't know if that was something that would be interesting, but there you go. I know for myself, I enjoy seeing books that people have in their collections and things, just to kind of see what kind of stuff people collect and what kind of stuff is out there. Before we get into the comics, we've had a real busy week. It's been an epic week in the land of politics and news, and I am going to touch on some of it. So if you're not interested, fair warning, turn back now, and then tune back in a little bit. There's just a few things that I wanted to mention. In the world of disappointments, Sean Fain, the president of the United Auto Workers in the States, showed his true colors as a piece of shit, backing Biden on behalf of his union, which is utter fucking horseshit. I've always been kind of pretty strongly against unions backing politicians of any kind. I don't care who they are. A union membership is made up of a lot of different people. Even in our small union, compared to the auto workers, definitely small, there's a lot of differing political opinions. I think once you start to back any politician, you run the risk of alienating a bunch of your membership who you're supposed to be there to serve. You're supposed to be there to kind of just provide help for and assistance for and support for. Secondly, how the fuck can you, as a union, back Joe Biden, who went out of his way to crush the rail workers strike, claiming that he's a fucking any sort of supporter of labor is absolute horse shit. I was watching some stream talking about the whole backing of Biden, and it was mentioned that as far as they understood, I don't know either. As far as they understood, he didn't offer any sort of tit for tat. If you want our support, how about you call for a ceasefire in Israel? How about you stop funding them in this war, in this genocide that's currently going on? So real big disappointment. There's always seems to be all of this big talk and all of these big pushes forward. And then there's these steps that just, in my estimation, really shit the bed for any forward momentum. And what was happening with the United Auto Workers, I think, was a huge step forward. The ground that they were able to cover was pretty impressive. And I think that it's a real disappointment that they would back Joe Biden. But like I said, let me make it extremely clear. I don't feel a union should be backing any politician. I don't care what party they're from. I don't care if they're independent. I really don't think unions should be in the business of backing politicians. Unions should be in the business of providing support and helping their membership. And if that means working with whatever party is in office, that's obviously something you have to do. But going out of your way to back us and support a politician, I think, is utter nonsense. In kind of Canadian news that came up, there was a big ruling this week from a federal court talking about the Canadian government's use of the Emergency Measures Act, which happened when the trucker protest was happening. This is one of those that I don't give a shit what you think about the trucker protest. I don't care if you're in support of it. I don't care if you're not in support of it. The fact that the Emergency Measures Act was used instead of going and actually talking to people was a scary step forward. There was people whose bank accounts were frozen, those of people in their family as well too. So people associated with people backing the truckers. The one thing I found really interesting, does this mean that anybody's going to get punished? No, it doesn't. It just makes a ruling now that sets a new bar. Of course, the government is going to appeal it and take it up the ladder, which of course is not a surprise. It would happen on the flip side too if the decision went the other way. I think the biggest thing that this shows is that there's now a new level. If something like this were to happen again, there's now precedent where people can go and put an injunction in place against the government of doing something like this. Are people going to get punished? Of course they won't. They're politicians. They're kind of untouchable. I guess they'll get punished when it comes to time for the vote. We'll see if he gets voted in again. I highly doubt it. Again, not that whoever would take his place is going to be any better. They're all part of a corrupt, broken system. So I don't hold out much hope. One of the things that I'm interested in, even though it says in the official ruling that people who were affected by this Emergency Measures Act usage could not sue the government for any loss and damages. Now, one of the interviews I was watching with a lawyer, she was from the Canadian Civil Liberties Association. So there was two groups that brought this to the courts: the Canadian Civil Liberties Association and the Canadian Constitution Foundation were the two groups that brought these charges to the court. She did a really good job in the one interview that I saw. I'm blanking on her name right now. She was one of the lawyers for the CCLA, and she was very reluctant to say anything how it would affect potential lawsuits in the future. She just kind of restated what had already been said previously in it. I'm curious to see if there's any leg room there. I'm curious to see if there's any kind of workarounds that could happen, because people should be compensated for the damage that it did financially, specifically. And I also thought it was interesting that when they were trying to push this whole trucker protest as a purely Nazi white supremacist thing, they showed a bit of footage. It was always repeated, the same kind of footage of a flag, of a swastika, you know what I mean? So when you have groups that size, of course, you're going to get some people in there that have ideas that kind of go outside of the group. Of course, that's going to happen. I found it interesting watching the coverage on Canadian news that when they would inevitably show footage from the protest while they had the talking heads going, not one shot of that. It was a lot of other shots of a very peaceful protest. There was images that I saw even when it was going on with like bouncy castles and people cooking in the street for people, et cetera, et cetera. So it just really shows how kind of the propaganda machine works and how things can be manipulated depending on what the message is. So that was a big one. And then, of course, the Hague coming down with their ruling that South Africa has indeed brought a case forward that could potentially be genocide. I have mixed feelings about it. The ruling itself, it ends up sort of feeling a little hollow. It's not like we all don't know what's happening. Again, it's these organizations that don't really have teeth. So then it just kind of goes to the next step. Now they can kind of present the case. And then on the flip side, I do know that that does lay the groundwork. I do understand that. And I do feel like it's an important step. Ultimately, though, ceasefire should be happening, period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I think it should be concerning to everybody in North America, in the UK, when it comes to voting time, who, if anybody, you're going to vote for. The government is supposed to be there for quote unquote kind of our bidding to some degree. Obviously, it's not exclusively that. You need leaders to lead us into the future. There's a mixture, but ultimately, um, millions of people are calling for a ceasefire, and the governments aren't listening. They aren't paying attention, and they're spinning things. And if you saw the Nancy Pelosi video of her on some news show talking a whole bunch of bullshit about pro-Palestinian protesters being puppets of Putin, the thing that they love to say, orange man bad, puppets of Putin, it gets really fucking tiring. Just like the terms woke, all of that shit gets really fucking tiring. Breaking down these very complex situations into kind of buzzwords just so you can have the freedom to not listen to anybody when they have something to say about any given topic is really just weak and really really simple-minded when it comes to having any sort of discussion. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next. But because of all this stuff going on, I just haven't been reading a ton these past couple of weeks. Fantagraphics is putting out, doing yet another printing of Joe Sacco's Palestine. And then they're also going to be having some new strips from Sacco on their website. There's one up there now. Social media showing the cesspit that it usually is. Usual gang of fucking morons coming out saying that they're profiteering off of genocide, which is just complete and utter nonsense. The level of discourse online never ceases to amaze me. Half a fucking retard out there talking a bunch of bullshit behind their computer. So I think that's important to support. That's important to kind of educate yourself when you can. Again, guys that I've been listening to, Norman Finkelstein, of course, Chris Hedges has been great. Hedges did an interview with Sacco, about a 30-minute interview, maybe a week ago now or something. So, yeah, exactly right. And that's the thing, when this spin gets implemented, they can just ring in whoever they want, whenever they want, and however they want. So, yeah, it's good that she made you aware that Putin was pulling your strings there, sellers. Now with that brand new knowledge, go out and greet the day. So that's all the stuff that's been on my mind. It makes me really angry. It makes me really sad. It makes me really feel kind of helpless in things like this. You do what you can. It makes me feel that we're just kind of inevitably going to be running the treadmill. It boggles my mind that people can support a president like Joe Biden. It boggles my mind that people can support a prime minister like Justin Trudeau. I really, really hope that things don't pan out the way that I think that they will. Do I think that your orange game show host down in the States is any better? Do I really think that Pierre Poilievre up here is any better? Fuck no, I don't. They're all part of a system that needs to be dismantled. And I think that that kind of thing comes from the labor movement, which is why it really pissed me off about Shawn Fain doing what he did on behalf of the UAW, or vocalizing the UAW's decision, rather. I don't want to make it sound like he's the only one making that decision. That's unfair. But vocalizing that support for Joe Biden, I think, is really unfortunate and really short-sighted, and not going to bring us anywhere closer to where we need to be. So we need to dismantle everything, and that's only going to happen by everybody from the working class working together, putting all this bullshit behind us, whatever kind of bickering that everybody wants to tell you is really important. It's really not important. Learn to communicate with your neighbors. Learn to communicate with people that you disagree with politically. Trying to find some common ground, because that's the only way forward. Okay, that's off my chest. So the next thing is we'll talk about books. So like I said, I didn't read a ton. I did read a couple of things digitally, so maybe we'll start there. Let's see if I can have this open. That's not the screen. Present, share screen. Let's see here. Here we go. Let's see if this works. There we go. That should be there now. Let's go full screen with this. Hopefully that works. So I've started into Dylan Dog. Dylan Dog has had a lot of, I think, a series of reprints. Was it from Dark Horse? I don't remember if they did some of these. So this stuff is available out there. I've never seen it in person. So I started into one volume here, which was Dawn of the Dead. And I actually loved this. This was a really fun read. So Dylan Dog is kind of not quite a supernatural detective, but he really, from what I'm understanding from this first volume, is he focuses more in on the supernatural as far as like being a private investigator goes. There's also a little bit of a kind of intrigue happening in this one. This guy is kind of creating a virus to make The Walking Dead. And one of the things that I really responded to in this issue was the artwork. I thought the artwork was pretty exceptional. The times that it looked kind of traced, but still having this unique look to it. There's a little bit of a roughness to the line. There's a little bit of ink smears. It looks almost ballpoint pen at times. I really, really dug this. I've got a few other of the Dylan Dog. Like, look at those 3 panels there. Those are outstanding. I've got some other Dylan Dog on the computer that I'm going to try to dive into this week. But this was a real, real blast to read this one. I'd love to find some stuff to add to the library here. Like, look at these marks on this guy's face here, like this dry brushing kind of look here and smudges going on. It's a real kind of rough and gritty style to things. You almost get that if you've seen any footage of Alex Nino drawing, when he kind of does outlines, how he almost makes it one continuous line. And then you get these areas here on her clothes where it looks like maybe his hand has touched as he's been drawing, his hand has kind of touched the paper and had these blots going on, and smearing those lines, I think, is really, really great. I think that this is probably scanned not the best either. So I think some of these artifacts that I'm so fond of probably come from the transfer itself or from the scanning itself. So yeah, but if you haven't read any Dylan Dog, I wouldn't hesitate. It's pretty damn fun. I'll just kind of take you through some other ones. Like, look at this silhouette down here with the scissors in the eyes. So this is her husband, who's kind of been turned into a zombie. And then now that she's kind of dispatched him and dealt with them, Nightmare Investigator is what I think that says there. I think it says Nightmare Investigator, or it's supposed to, Dylan Dog. Groucho Marx, of course, works for him. And it's presented very much as that is actually Groucho Marx. That part I wasn't as fond of, but I guess, you get a little bit of comedic relief there, I suppose. But I could have done without that. But that's, again, a kind of minor squabble. It's not going to stop me from reading some more of these. And there's moments where it looks like it was kind of traced from Night of the Living Dead. There was a panel, I thought it was around here somewhere, that looks like it's directly from the movie. They're coming to get you, Barbara. Oh, well, this is another infamous, I don't remember the name of the movie, but for all you horror movie buffs out there, this one on the bottom left, my cursor isn't there. This one here is a very infamous image from a horror movie there. So I don't remember the title off the top of my head, though. Probably from one of the Italian guys like Fulci maybe, or somebody. And this, I love this look of this doctor here. Again, the kind of look of almost like a continuous line. And these kind of dots that are at the end of the line here, like where the kind of fountain pen is bleeding out a little bit. So yeah. Anyway, really, really great story. I really dug that one. I will read some more. Let me get... oh, you have that in Italian, Sellers. That's amazing. Does it look like that, like the scan, or does it look a little crisper? And then for other... where is it here? Here we go. For some other digital that I read this week, we have share screen, share. There we go. We have Grit Bath. So I have one of these issues, Renee French's Grit Bath. I have one of these issues in my collection, but I have these files. I had these files for quite a while of the 3-issue miniseries. Renee French, I believe, still does work to this day. I think she does painting and things. This was a twisted little book. I don't really know what to make of it. I mean, I really enjoyed the art, but it was really coming from a pretty dark place. Again, when it comes to stuff like this, putting in kind of some modern context, I think of like what's happening in the pages of Vacuum Decay, you know, where you're really kind of digging into kind of the darkness of whether it's family life or kind of these demented kind of children or just these unusual situations. But her artwork is pretty exceptional. I think she's also done some kids books in the past as well too, which also kind of boggles my mind considering what's on these pages. I won't show you all 3 issues. I did like it. I don't know if it's something that I would revisit, although looking at this again, I am still really digging the art. I'd be curious to see what else that she's done. I have an order that I've sent off. Sorry, I'm doing a trade with Lone Star or mycomicshop.com. I've sent off a box of books. I'm probably going to get I'm hoping around the $90 range for trade value. I don't know if I'll kind of keep that in there and kind of send them some more once I finish going through the cabinets here. But we'll see, to try to get some other stuff. And there was a couple of other one-shots of Renee French stuff that came out in Dark Horse. And what the hell was it called? I think it came out in Dark Horse Presents, and then they did a single issue, a one-shot of it as well, I think. But I'm blanking on the title of that one there. Big 6-panel pages, pretty much sticking to that almost throughout the entire thing. We get a little bit of variation. The pages are filled with ink, filled with black, which is great, but it's almost this kind of very textured, almost pixelated, as they talk about fisting in this particular issue here, in this particular story. So yeah, there you go. That's Renee French's Grit Bath issue number 1. A nice ad for Naughty Bits in the back there. And then the back cover here. Yeah, so 2 and 3. Stop sharing. There we go. Dawn of the Dead. That might be the one there. Yes, that might be it there, Sellers. So that's all that I read digitally. And then there was a couple of books that I picked up this weekend. Not too many. One of them that I read online on one of the Facebook groups, one of the local guys, Dan from Mad Cat Comics, he had a claim sale where he lists a book, lists a price, and you just say you'll take it. I got my hands on Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man, number 27, which I guess is the first. Is this the first Frank Miller doing Daredevil? He's doing pencils in this book for a mere $6. It's not in bad shape considering, but this is a pretty solid one. I love Daredevil. Of course, I love the Frank Miller run. So this is perfect for the collection. One of those where I was never really sure that I would actually get a copy. Nor was it high on my radar, to be honest, either. but it is nice to kind of have my hands on one. So Frank Miller pencils. Bill Mantlo is writer. Frank Miller guest penciler. Frank Springer inker. And there you go. So let's get to some more pages here. Yeah, I mean, it looks pretty good to me. I've never been a huge Spider-Man fan. I got nothing against him, that said, as well, too. So I'll be curious to read this because I haven't read a ton of Spider-Man in my life. My brother was always the big Spider-Man fan and the big Spider-Man reader. I'd read the odd issues here and there, but it wasn't a character I ever really deeply got into. So I'm kind of looking forward to digging into this one, to be honest. So even though it's not Frank doing the writing, I think it'll be cool to see kind of where he started with these characters. And then also when I went to visit Dan to pick up that book, I had a quick look through his bins. He had Godzilla, the Half-Century War. I guess this was a #1 greatest hits from IDW that came out. It was $1. Dan had it for $2. I bought it. I've got this series, but I really like Stoko, so it's nice to kind of add this to the collection as well too. This was a completely not necessary purchase. I could have easily left this behind, but it couldn't be done for $2. So Stoko's fantastic, and this was a pretty damn good little mini series here too. Dan was telling me that he had a bunch of other Godzilla books as well, and he's like, I don't know what the hell to do with them. And it is a bit difficult because he was saying that if he puts them into bundles and kind of puts a price on them, he's not sure if anybody would actually buy them. And then I was also saying to him that unfortunately some of this IDW stuff, the books themselves aren't that good. The interior art isn't really that good. The stories are kind of hit and miss, right? So if you don't have a mini series from an artist or a writer, but specifically an artist that people are into, you're going to have a hard time selling them regardless of what the internet kind of tells you the price should be. Yeah, I've got some IDW Godzilla stuff, and there has been some really good ones, but every time there's a new series and I flip through it, it feels like kind of 7 times out of 10 or 8 times out of 10, the interior art is just absolute ass and holds no appeal whatsoever. So it is a bit of a crapshoot with those, but you can't go wrong with Stoko. And then the final thing for tonight, the book that I grabbed at Red River. So my daughter has a fairly big book collection these days. So her and my wife weeks ago now had gone through kind of her library and put aside a bunch of books that maybe were a little too young for her. Some that she actually got at Red River Books over the years. So we packed those up, and on Saturday we took a trip to Red River just to see what he would give her for trade credit. He did great as always. He gave her $30 in trade. She was able to go and pick herself out a handful of books again. She's starting to pick out like chapter books for herself, like big girl books, you know, so she's pretty excited about that. He's got just a really nice selection of books for kids around her age, kind of in one of the back corners. And it's a real nice variety for a bunch of different ages. So, and the prices are always like dirt cheap on that stuff too. Obviously some of it is varying degrees of kind of condition, but there's a lot that's in pretty good condition. So while we were there, I had a peek. He had I've put it away already, number 18 of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for $5. It's in the drawer already filed away. But that was a nice find. I didn't have that issue. And then on his kind of new release kind of area, like the stuff that's newer to the store when it comes to hardcovers and collected editions and things like that, there was this book, Paris 2119 from Magnetic Press, Them of the Rounded Corners. So I read this one. I really loved the art. I think he had a $15 price tag on it. Yeah, $15 is what he had. So Zepp and Bertale are the creators. Script and storyboard by Zepp. Illustration by Dominique Bertale. Colors by Gaetan Georges and Dominique Bertale. This came out in 2019. And it was a pretty great book overall, honestly. Sort of a sci-fi, not kind of post-apocalyptic, that's not quite the word, but it feels like this sort of like not quite a bleak future either, but it sort of has a bit of that darkness. Our main character still does things like walk around town and take the subway, whereas a lot of other people are using this Telecorp, I think is the name of the company, and it's these kind of transporters devices, kind of Star Trek idea of transporters, where it kind of breaks your body down and transports you to another place, so you can travel around the world, you can travel across the city. He is kind of a technophobe, I guess, and he's kind of called like a bit of an old timer because he's never gone in one of these transporters. He doesn't trust them. He'd rather move around on foot. He'd rather ride the subways. But the subways now are relegated to kind of the very low class, or the tourists of society. So one night when he's on the subway, he runs into this woman who looks pretty rough. The art is beautiful. There's like touches of Paul Pope. There's touches of Mike Allred in here. There's a real nod to kind of the Europeans. There's some stuff in here that's very Mobius kind of looking. So there feels like there's a lot of references for this art, and it's kind of beautiful. The art is kind of nice. It kind of rides that balance of the simplicity mixed with you'll get some kind of details in the backgrounds. The coloring is a little dark on some of the pages, especially when it comes to our main character's girlfriend. I found her a little too dark at times, just because it made it hard to kind of pick up facial expressions and things on the page. But yeah, there's so much kind of nods to Mike Allred in this. So he ends up getting this new job, and his boss is the woman that he saw on the subway who looked like she was just whacked out of her mind on drugs. As we kind of move through the story with him, we find out that there's something wrong with these transporters, and it's doing something to some of the people that end up moving through those transporters. And I won't tell you anything beyond that because that's kind of the meat of the story there. But I really enjoyed this. It was a really easy read. I'll leave you with this page here. So he ends up seeing his boss again on the bus, and somebody has reported her to the authorities. The authorities come and kind of take her away. He follows and is kind of hiding around the corner to see what they do, and they end up zapping and frying her, which is the last thing that he expected that he would see there. So it sort of hints at like a bigger mystery of what the hell is going on. It's very cool, man. Fits in nicely with kind of the era of kind of constantly being monitored, how you want to engage with new technology, being hesitant to kind of jump into new technologies feet first, what the kind of fears are. I think that there's every generation, when there's new technologies going on, you can kind of look to science fiction and horror to see kind of what people are kind of apprehensive about as a society. Fear of matter transporters like Dr. Bones McCoy. Yeah, absolutely. And what that does to you when you do transport, if it's taking you apart and redistributing you at the other end, what does that do? How does it keep everything in order? Do you actually become a new person, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So all of that is explored in here in kind of a nice kind of a slimmer sort of album format. So from Magnetic Press. So really good. He had another Magnetic Press book there. I can't remember what the title was. I flipped through it. The art wasn't as intriguing, but after reading that, next time I'm back, I may have another look at it, maybe look at it again with fresh eyes and see what we got going on there. So that's all that I've read this week. Hopefully I get into some more stuff this week. Hopefully things sort of start to ease along here this week, politics wise. So it doesn't take up all of my time. I've got a couple of day calls coming up here. So that'll kind of at least get me out of the house and put my mind onto something else. Yeah, I think that's it. Thanks very much for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Stay positive. Don't trust anybody. Don't trust the government. Really question the leadership. If you do vote, if you do participate in that system, remember that it's not a popularity contest. Ultimately, you are voting for a party, and no individual is going to be able to draw people away from the fundamental drive of what the party stands for and what the system allows. So just be aware. Surveillance Capitalism by Shoshana Zuboff is a great non-comic book on the subject. Beauty. Thank you very much, Sellers. That's a great recommendation there. All right, everybody. Take it easy.